Good afternoon and welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us at the market site in Times Square, Steve Cohen is back with us. He's a co-founder and COO of Basis Technology. We're going to take a look at applying artificial intelligence for mission-critical applications to the world of finance. Steve, it's great to have you back with us.
Well, thank you.
At MarketSite. Now, you have an interesting background. Tell us about your experience with the intelligence community.
Well, so our company got started literally the day after 9/11, and we realized we had certain skills and certain capabilities that would be applicable to what we then called the global war on terror. And over the next roughly decade, we built up a bunch of capabilities based on what we now call AI, focused on analyzing types of information that the intelligence community cares about, or certain types of information that they care about. One of the interesting things we learned in this process is, even though what you mostly hear about in the news is failures, because those are the things that that's a man bites dog kind of thing. There's a lot of successes. Most of them you don't hear about. The intelligence community, the DoD, they're focused on what they refer to as left of boom, which is a great summary term that says they're trying to prevent these problems from ever happening. And again, most of these stories don't actually get a lot of press. There's one that we like to talk about that we had a part to play in. This is what's called the liquid bomber plot from 2006. Which I think a lot of people should learn about. There's a Wikipedia page you can read up. The liquid bomber plot was, in fact, a terrorist plot to down a number of planes, I think it was 7, over the Atlantic on the way from the UK to here. That plot was thwarted. It was thwarted because the intelligence community in the UK and in the US both had access to certain types of information, and just as important, to technology, and Basis Tech was part of that technology, that could be used to interpret, disseminate, and discover these kinds of things before they happen. And so that was an example of 7 planes that didn't crash into the ocean, thank God. And that actually happens more often than we hear about.
Right, so no news is good news. I mean, we're right outside in Times Square right now, and
Yes.
we are clearly very vulnerable in the middle of Manhattan. I'm sure there's stuff that law enforcement agencies and companies such as Basis Tech are thwarting all the time that we never hear about.
It's certainly happening, and I'm not saying we're completely aware, but it's happening all the time. And technology is a key player in that. And what we realized after doing that for a while, when we looked at the financial sector, was that the problems required that finance needed to solve for compliance and for anti-money laundering were largely the same kinds of problems. And so we set about retargeting, or starting to position our technology to be useful there. So you have things like first pass screening, simply looking through piles of information, maybe just a list of names, or maybe all sorts of other information to find candidates that are potential problems. Mm-hmm. That's the first step. The second step, in both cases, is trying to understand all that information. And whereas once upon a time, maybe many years ago now, in internet era, the big problem was finding the information, was just getting it. Now the problem is you have too much information, right? I think everybody is aware of that. And so you need a whole wide variety of analytic tools, and some of which we provide, and there's many others that other companies do, to understand.
Right.
Understanding is a misused term, but essentially it comes down to understanding what's in all that information.
So it sounds like banking and intelligence, they're very similar. You have all these data sets, you're trying to clean that data, and you're trying to come to a resolution with all the information at your disposal.
You're trying to find what you need to find out, and sometimes those are different. Often it's not actually that different. You're looking for connections between information. And so the analytic tools that we build can help find the candidates, but also build those connections and discover how things relate between one bit of data and another bit of data, or one data set and another data set.
All right, so NLP, let's talk about that a bit. What is that, and how is that going to bring the most value to the industry?
So NLP is natural language processing, and what this amounts to is helping computers understand information that people created, in particular language information or text. There's certainly tons of documents out there. We all know that. We're all exposed to it every single day. And we know that buried in this, the needle in the haystack metaphor is something we probably overuse, but it's appropriate. Buried within this are useful bits of information, and finding them is hard. There have been and still are many examples of places where there are rooms full of people reading documents in order to find information, retype it into another document, and send it along. That's really not appropriate for 2019.
So is this what you would consider machine learning, or is that more on the AI side?
Well, I tend to conflate machine learning and AI. The tools are basically the same thing. And yes, we are using AI tools to accomplish this. And the reason for that is these are cognitive tasks. And the best way nowadays to implement cognitive types of analytic tasks is to have a machine learn from examples that humans have, where humans have said, this is a this and this is a that, identify what is the correct answer.
All right, Steve, thanks so much as always for joining us at MarketSite.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining me on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.